it's Alberto Lombardi from Italy, and I'm here today with my friends at Acoustic Guitar Magazine. Well, I'm actually in Rome, but virtually with them, to share with you a few of the musical devices that I use to try and build up some excitement and variety into acoustic guitar songs, compositions, and arrangements. So we will take a look at how interesting harmony, key changes, guitar feels, and maybe a little bit of tempo changes, some interesting technique devices with a little bit of a wow effect, some flashy technique, can actually produce the effect of building excitement into a song and in the listener. The track that we will be using is one of my most recent songs, and it's called Through the Years. You might not be familiar with that, so let me play it for you. This song came about last summer. I already had the verse down, so I was waiting for the right chorus to hit me, and I was lucky enough to be touring with Tommy Emmanuel at that moment, and I was watching him play and perform from backstage. And one of the things that struck me, because obviously there were many, but one of them was that he plays a very wide variety of styles, all incorporated into an acoustic guitar repertoire. Arrangements, songs, they borrow from so many styles. And myself being an electric guitar player and an acoustic guitar player, I realized that I always try to mix those two worlds, borrowing from each other to complement the two styles. So Tommy made me click with this idea, and I rationalized it, and actually that's when the chorus of the song came about, because I thought I want to do something really surprising and different. Let's just now see how the main theme sounds, and it is example number 1. The theme is just this. It's very simple in the key of E major. It's a very simple melody, and the first time I played with no tempo, so it's actually a rubato. This comes from the Italian, so I pronounce it with an Italian sound and accent. The second time around, when the verse repeats itself, this is not actually the full verse, but it's just a little bit, just to give you an example. When it repeats itself the second time, you gotta give the listener something new. So, by subtracting the tempo on the first time you play it, you actually already add something by just playing it on a beat. Plus, what I add is a little bit of a snare sound that I do like this with my thumb. You can also do it with your fingers and the fingernails. I sometimes do that too. I've been doing it for a long time, but now I'm trying to incorporate this younger approach to the snare sound on the acoustic guitar. So these are the first two things. The third thing that I add is a couple of harmonics, natural harmonics, that also spice up a little bit the second verse. Check it out. Actually, there's a little bit of ghost notes in there too, to add a little bit more rhythm. So let me play it slowly for you. So just by adding this couple of things, it's already more moving and interesting, but the most important thing is that it's different from the first time. It builds up, so excitement and passion in the song are growing. But the verse comes a third time after the first chorus. So it comes about 4 times, because the fourth time is sung, there's vocals on it. But let's just talk about the guitar. The third time it comes around, you want to add something more. You don't want to give the listener the same thing they've already listened to the previous times. So what I did here, and that's something that I usually do, I add a little bit of lead guitar that comes from my electric guitar background, that it's a little bit of a blend between electric soloing and electric comping. So there's a little bit of Hendrix in there, some rhythm guitar that also has some kind of melody inside of it. Think about Little Wing. And sometimes there are full lead guitar parts, like double stops or even single lines. So what I do the third time around, that the verse comes about, it's this. What I did is I added a little bit of a counterpoint to the main melody in a way that maybe Hendrix would have done, because what usually Hendrix did, he had a chord and he played around the chord with hammer-on and pull-offs with the notes he had available from the minor pentatonic or the minor scale or the major scale, whatever was available. And I did that, adding a couple of notes in the first 2 chords, like this. So this is just a counter melody. But when the third chord comes, I actually play some more lead guitar thing by adding some double stops, like this. This is not actually really lead guitar, it's still in the vein of Hendrix. But this is maybe more like a Steve Cropper thing, a Blues Brothers thing. And all these devices together create some interest, they build up excitement, and the ear of the listener doesn't get tired, because it's always a little different. There's always a little bit more added to it. Let me play it again slowly. fourth musical device that I would like to share with you is tempo changes. So what happens sometimes, especially in prog music, progressive music and progressive rock from the 70s, but even today's progressive rock, is that songs abruptly change tempo. Maybe they have a ballad type of feeling on the verse, and then they change to a faster paced song in the chorus. So that's what I did with this song. It's something that I really like. Maybe Genesis would do something like this. And I went from the really slow, calm pace of the verse to a more aggressive, upspeed tempo on the chorus. Check it out. I finish the verse, and then I go into the chorus. Etc. And this creates a lot of excitement because you're getting used to that very calm feeling of the verse, and suddenly something changes and you're taken to a completely different word where everything is fast, and it's actually a more guitarist-like part of the song. While the first one sounds more like a vocal melody, this one sounds more like a guitar synth kind of part. And that's very exciting. The one thing that you want to be careful about is to do it with taste. Well, of course, everything you do should be done with taste, but sometimes these things can sound mechanical. So just be careful to do it in a musical way. Even if it's very abrupt, it has to be musical. Okay, this is the fun part. In an acoustic guitar piece, in a guitar piece in general, there's also a guitar solo, which is something strange because the whole thing is a guitar solo, but it's nice to have a specific part. Sometimes, not always, it could become boring after a while, tedious, but in some songs I like to put a real guitar solo, either by doing it with a loop station. So I have an arrangement, let's say, of Isn't She Lovely that I recently played with Tommy Emmanuel, and when I play it by myself, I actually create a loop with my loop station and I solo over it, even putting a little bit of distortion on the acoustic guitar. But sometimes I actually write something that sounds like a guitar solo, but it's more arranged, so it's self-sustaining. And in this case, I actually was inspired by something that I watched, a movie that I watched when I was very little, and the movie is called Crossroads, and it features Steve Vai as the evil guitar player. And there's a part when he duels with the protagonist of the film, and he actually plays a Paganini Capriccio, which is number 5. It's a little bit of the number 5, which is very technical. And the thing that is really impressive in watching it, even more than in listening to it, is that he moves about the fretboard very, very fast. So with a completely different technique, that was like... and then it moved around very fast. But I changed completely the technique that I'm using. It's a more of a fingerstyle thing. But I do use the same big jumps on the fretboard to create excitement. So this is the little cell that I started with. And then I moved it all over the fretboard with different harmonies. And this creates a moment of break. It's like a real guitar solo in a rock song, because when the solo comes, you're actually taken to a different place. The songs, I wouldn't say it stops for a second, but just changes the lead role. The guitar becomes the lead, and in this case it's the same. It's like the guitar was singing up until that point, but in that point it became a lead guitar. So this is not the last. I have another one, little tip that I want to share with you, which is actually making use of interesting harmony. And that takes me to example number 6, which is still about the B part. This is actually faster. Where I actually start remaining in E major, because we started in E major and we are still in E major, but going to A with this chord, I actually have a very distinct Lydian vibe. So even if I didn't change the key, I went to a chord of that key and I used its peculiar sound and I emphasized it to create something interesting for the ear, something different from the very plain major melody that we were listening to on the verse. But then I add some licks in there that are not in the E major key. This is interesting because while it was leading up to that point, because it had that sharp 4, that D sharp note, I play a lick that contains a natural D note. So I change the color a little bit. It's like tweaking the color of a light just a tiny bit. But you can feel it. It's something that you feel, you perceive more than something you clearly see. But still, it's something very effective, and classical composers did this all the time. I was listening to something from Mozart this morning, not because I want to sound pretentious, but because it's really cool to listen to. And it did this all the time. It is maybe on C major for a little while, then it briefly adds a little F sharp, like a sharp 4, like in this case, it goes to Lydian, then it switches back to Ionian, to major, natural major. Then it goes to the parallel minor mode, but it's still maybe in C, C major, C Lydian, C minor, and all those changes are really, really effective. So in our case, we go from Lydian to natural major, A natural. Then we go back to E major, because we have the D sharp that we changed a little while ago. Changing again the taste of the dish. Then we change again. We introduce a completely new flavor, which is A minor. Actually with a 9. Then moves to D minor over A. This creates a very distinct change in harmony because we moved from E major to C major, which is kind of a big jump. There is 4 sharps difference. And here I introduce a little bit of a movement underneath the chords. Again, just to make it interesting. Then we go back to E major. E9, add 9 here. We change this rapidly to a D add 9, so we are not actually in E major, we are in E mixolydian. So just to recap the keys, we went from A Lydian, which is E major, to A Ionian, which is E mixolydian if you want. Then we went to E major again. Then we went to A minor, natural minor, Aeolian. Then we went to E mixo. Then we go back again to A Aeolian, A natural minor. And we used quite a bunch of different keys, different modes to create interest. Well, I gave you a few things to work on and to maybe try and incorporate into your arrangements or compositions. And my name is Alberto Lombardi. Please go and check out my record through the years. You can find it on all the major streaming platforms, and also check out my website, albertolombardi.com. I'll see you soon. Thanks again for having me, to my friends at Acoustic Guitar Magazine. Ciao!